Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. New Substack up at theamericanclassroom.substack.com. This one is titled Molecular Communication, the Ongoing Dysgenics of Intrabody Nano Networks. Very quickly here, right at the top, I want to dive into this just briefly. This is in relation to, again, a more recent video from Sabrina Wallace again. I continue to believe wholeheartedly and know for a fact that this is arguably one of the largest and most important subjects that is not being discussed. And again, as I've said before, I fully understand her frustration. And then, of course, she'll come back sometimes after some videos that she makes where she's yelling and screaming, and rightfully so. And then she'll sort of create a smaller video where she's very calmly going through some of this paperwork and she's showing everybody, again, the word usage, the people, the organizations that are all behind this. Long story short, with molecular communication, is that this is an intra-body, inside the bloodstream, inside the arteries and veins, wireless technology communication that people are actually working on. Very evil people, of course. And as I briefly state in the article, this is much like the COVID lie. You need the foundation of a lie in order to sell people a very dangerous product, to where if that product has a negative impact on these individuals, which of course it would, and inserting nanotech and any other kind of metal that can be read or transmit wireless signals to and from other people and objects, that when they become ill, the way that these people are selling this product is as a medical preventative measure, which means if it reads a particular medical reading out toward some kind of a computer outside of the human body, and that computer says, well, that human being is sick over there. Well, yes, we've detected that that your insides are ill and that you're not feeling well. Well, no kidding, they wouldn't be feeling well. They've been injected with things and biosensors and nanosensors and nanotechnology that doesn't belong in their body in the first place. So again, just like the COVID lie, you tell people that COVID is this virus that's floating around in the air that will make you sick, and that's why people are becoming sick, and it's way worse than the flu, and then you go to a hospital and you die and whatever else. And that the death rate is, again, way worse than the flu, so everybody watch out. They need the scare tactics first to then sell you a product. The product they sold during the COVID lie were the bioweapon shots. This was actually the deadly part of the very thing that a lot of people participated in, of course. And then, of course, once people became sick from the shots, what did people say as a result? They didn't say it was the shots that were making people sick. They said, well, you have COVID. And then they all backtracked and they said, well, the shots don't work very well for this first variant, quote unquote. Therefore, there are other variants. Look over here. We've made another paper that says that there are other variants, when in fact there are not. There are just a plethora of symptoms that are pages long, single-spaced, 12-point font, numerous pages again. Endless symptoms, endless chronic illnesses, endless disorders associated with it, but they call those variants because they exist in different people at different times and at different rates. Molecular communication is another trick. Again, it is designed to be sold as a medical preventative measure, when in fact it is not. It is really just designed to kill you and make you sick, and then have you wonder why. And then you become, of course, a patient of the pharmaceutical industry for the rest of your life, which will certainly be far shorter than you can possibly imagine. And then that's the end of it. Not to mention, if you load the bloodstream, which I have direct images in this particular article that come from these peer-reviewed papers and these white papers, they openly show blood flow inside of an artery and then routers, actual nano wireless routers, inside of the lining of the artery with nano nodes inside of the actual bloodstream. So not only is there constant wireless electrical communication taking place with nanotechnology inside of the human body, but it, of course, is connected to the wireless body area network outside of the human body. And that, of course, as you might expect, can be controlled. Apple iWatches, the different apps and health-related apps, quote unquote, that will make their way onto those watches with more regularity. The diabetic diagnostic tools that people stick to their body to measure their blood sugar, quote unquote, so they're told. Again, all of this is a giant lie. All of this is completely unnecessary. In fact, I make reference to the movie from 2002, Minority Report, that Tom Cruise movie. That movie is very much in league and in line with molecular communication at this level that we are experiencing now, and that, of course, these papers have been written about for quite some time. And they're not new. Some of these papers date back to 2008. Some of them, I'm sure, go even further back than that. But in Minority Report, you have 3 individuals referred to as precogs engaging in what is referred to in the movie as precognition. So they're basically hooked up to a computer, sitting in this and lying down with their basically face up, with their back in this goo, as they're again hooked up to all of these cords and all of this electricity. In this, again, what you can assume is just nanotechnology goo that's floating through their bloodstream, because again, their veins and arteries and the color of their actual skin is not that of an actual living human being with oxygen flowing through it. And then as they're hooked up to computers, these computers, of course, are run by the so-called law enforcement authorities and the state, which is government. And then, of course, the law enforcement individuals monitoring these computers are basically figuring out what crimes are going to take place with which people in what locations before they actually happen. Now, when it comes to molecular communication, the research, the literature, the organizations, and these publications, and of course the people perpetuating all of this, all you have to do is replace one element in that equation. You replace law enforcement and, again, the precognition of crimes that haven't been committed yet, and you replace it with preventative medicine, so they say, or predicting illness before it actually happens. It's the same nefarious story. It's the same nefarious scheme. Just replace those two things. Replace, again, street crime, murder, rape, assault, robbery, what have you, and replace it with pseudo-preventative medicine. Well, our computers and our sensors tell us that you're not feeling well. Do you feel okay? And the person's like, yeah, I feel fine. But then all of a sudden, something happens inside of their body and they don't feel good anymore. Again, very similar to the COVID lie. Well, I took 10 COVID tests, and I tested negative on all of these tests, but I did take one, and of those 10, there was one that was positive, so I must have COVID. This is the brainwashing. This is the dysgenics application of all of this. That's why it's such a small piece in a much larger picture, which is designed, again, to kill people. That's the entire plan here. It's never really preventative medicine. It's all designed to slowly graduate human beings into believing that all of this will be acceptable in the future. Lord knows it'll be acceptable to a great deal of medical doctors. They'll say, well, wow, what an advancement. We can inject your bloodstream. It won't hurt you, we promise, because the doctor says so. They inject you with metal, and then they say, well, this metal will float around in your bloodstream, and it'll detect cancer before you even have it, or before you show any symptoms of it. We promise. Trust us, we're medical doctors. That mentality also is a dysgenics mentality. Trust us, we're medical doctors. We're not wrong. I've done it to myself. Therefore, I'm a medical doctor. Why would I give something to myself that I wouldn't give to my own patients? This kind of blind adherence to this application and these kinds of applications is the problem. And patients will fall for it. Again, very superficially. If I see an Apple Watch on someone's wrist, I know that they are not awake. They are on a lower dimension of thought than me, and certainly you. I see wireless earbuds in someone's ears. I think the exact same thing. These people have no idea what they're doing. So again, what I'll do is I'll link that Substack in the description below. And again, feel free and share it around. Send it to somebody. Say, hey, do you know that this is an actual thing? Do you know that this is already in place? And oh, by the way, do you know that this isn't even new? Of course, the hard pill for them to swallow, in particular if they're injected, is that the COVID shots themselves and the nanotech inside of the COVID shots themselves are a part of this plan. That all of that metal and self-assembling metal that's floating around in their bloodstream was the experiment to all of this. It was the experiment or a experiment in this molecular communication dysgenics program. Again, beyond disgusting. But you remember the videos from back in 2021. Individuals taking these shots and then metal utensils were sticking to their body. Or they were being hooked up literally to Bluetooth and wireless signals next to televisions or, cell phones and iPads and you name it. All of that was real. That was not an accident. And then, of course, just think of how many people either have forgotten that or they never even knew it in the first place. That's the alarming part. If they didn't know that that was a thing, then they're not going to be able to grasp molecular communication. And frankly, I don't think molecular communication and this entire evil scheme is that hard to understand. If you have a firm grasp of evil, and you have a middle school or high school sense of human biology, and certainly physiology and anatomy, you can arrive at this general conclusion. You do not screw with God's natural creation. You just don't. Leave it alone. You don't put metal in your body. Were you born with metal in your body? No. Then don't put it in. Were you born in a wireless environment with, again, wireless radiation surrounding most of our environments on a constant basis? No. Well, then don't surround yourself with it if you can certainly help it. The symptoms that people have felt over the course of years, certainly decades, certainly within the last 2 decades, have largely been as a result of wireless technology and the abundance of technology in our general environment. We have more of it in our homes now than ever before. So again, the normalization of all of this is beyond problematic, but there are endless environments and endless individuals and even people in so-called positions of influence who have no idea that this is even a thing. Not a clue. Watch a school board meeting. And look at their wrists. Look at the school board members' wrists and count the number of Apple Watches. These people will follow each other straight off of a cliff. It doesn't matter what the device is. It doesn't matter what the gimmick is. They will simply follow one another no matter what. They are consumers of the worst kinds of things. And they don't have a clue that they're being manipulated. So, again, it's another chapter in the upcoming book, I'm certain. Still taking notes on all of that and organizing my thoughts, but there you go. Anyway, again, I will link that Substack in the description below. Please check it out and feel free and move it around if you are interested. Okay. I've got some geopolitical audio to play here, and this is some jacked up stuff. First of all, a couple of overseas issues that I certainly want to bring up, certainly this one. UK farmland is again being threatened to be confiscated and taxed, certainly through the roof. And if farmers and their families who own these farms, of course, cannot acquire the money to pay off these taxes, then they have to sell. Well, who do you think is going to be the buyer? Probably Vanguard, probably BlackRock, and the like. This, again, is a totalitarian move made by the UK government against its people and their property. And they're protesting all of this, which is a good thing. There's going to have to be a revolution in that country. There really is, and I don't think it's going to be a clean one. I truly don't. The people there have had enough. You cannot speak freely in that country under any circumstances. The justice system is beyond unfair. Individuals who make a tweet go to jail, and individuals who rape other individuals, in particular when they are illegal individuals in the UK are raping people, they're being set free. Again, square that. Try to square that in your own head. Unfortunately, again, the mainstream media doesn't bring this to people's attention, which means your average sheep in America has no idea that that's even happening, and has been happening for quite some time. So again, thank God for the social media platforms where the actual truth exists, but you have to find this information. It's not going to be spoon-fed to people. So there's that. There's also this. There is an individual who is associated with a group that is titled, let me get his name here. First of all, his name is Dylan Hoser, if I'm saying that right, or Hoiser. Either way, he's a lobbyist, and he is an advocate for the Israeli-American civic education. Now, as you might expect, this is not good. He's basically a Jewish puppet in America, does exactly what the Jewish lobby wants him to do. He advocates on behalf of Israel and the rest of the Jewish lobbies that exist. And I have some audio that I want to play regarding him because he makes an open admission that I actually mentioned in the last episode but didn't play the audio because I want you to hear what he actually says, where he's openly talking about Mossad straight up surveilling and monitoring endless individuals in America, not only politicians but citizens themselves, specifically individuals again on social media, and if they say anything against Israel or anything against Jews, then he has numerous lobbies and is associated with numerous lobbies, in particular the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, in surveilling these people and creating dossiers on these people. So here's a quick little 30 seconds of him talking with two other individuals. Give this a listen. It's alarming. In 3, 2, 1.
Just for you and everybody to know who's watching, after October 7th, we did implement what internally I kind of call it an Iron Dome for Israel here in the US, where we're monitoring every elected official at every level of government, every school board, mission, from social media to press releases to official documents. We're monitoring all of it. So all of these city councils and the members who voted, we know who voted where, we know who voted what, and we'll be watching them as they move along their career and hopefully working to stop them.
Following people over the course of their careers and working to stop them. Again, anybody who says that three-letter agencies or foreign intelligence agencies haven't infiltrated our country, even at the local level, and aren't monitoring people, again, he's not blowing smoke. He's not trying to be, again, some tough guy and threaten people openly and making this up. This is legit. This is real. You've heard me say it endless times on the show. Three-letter agencies have infiltrated endless school districts all across the United States, certainly state departments of education. And as we know, the Federal Department of Education, which, by the way, allegedly they have failed their third audit in a row. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Think of all of the NGOs that they pay. Think of all the intelligence agencies that they pay. How about the foreign intelligence agencies that the Federal Department of Education pays? It's beyond, I mean, the word corrupt doesn't even begin to describe the depth of the evil. It's evil. But again, as you've heard me say, and I know it's kind of education related and I'm not even to that subject yet, but again, as you've heard me say, when this boils down to the state level and the Federal Department of Education is abolished, which clearly is why Donald Trump hasn't selected anybody for that cabinet position, because why would you if you're trying to get rid of it? Unless, of course, you want to hire somebody to just temporarily fill the position, gut it, destroy it, and then resign. I, of course, have offered up my services, professionally speaking. But either way, this fight is going to find its way to the state level. And those NGOs and those Jewish lobbies and all of that influence are going to find its way more at the state level than ever before, because basically you're blowing up their home base in Washington, D.C. So once that's gone, all the rats are going to scatter. They'll all go to all 50 states and the outlying areas. And then they'll work their way down through those organizations, superintendents associations, certification associations, curriculum boards, you name it. They're going to work their way and stick their tentacles down all of those avenues. And then it's going to work its way right down to the local level, more so than it already is. It's going to get real dirty in the education business very quickly. You're cutting off the head of the snake, which is fine. The problem is that this is a multi-headed snake, and it's still going to slither around for a very long time until you chop up the entire thing and burn it and get rid of it permanently. Until that happens, you're seeing a lot of people complain, a lot of people whine, and a lot of people not know that they're actually being manipulated. Again, even with all of these blow-up sessions that you're seeing and that we've seen, of course, in the field of education over the last couple of weeks, with these administrators, teachers, et cetera, what you're seeing with all of these individuals is you're not really hearing a lot of parents advocate for home learning. You're not hearing that. There's a lot of, well, we need to change these school boards, and we need to make these schools more conservative, and we need to get back to conservative values, and we need to get rid of the riffraff and get rid of this and get rid of that. That's a whole lot of work. Whole lot of work. You're gonna take a whole lot of swings at the plate. You're not really ever gonna knock anything out of the park. As soon as you chop off one head, another one will grow back. I'm not saying that good work isn't being done. It's certainly being done in the town where I live. These people continue to step in it. However, as you've heard me say before, and as you know, the fastest way to eliminate this permanently is to walk away now and forever. Take the money. If you live in a state where you can do this like you can in Ohio, you take the money, the voucher cash, away from the school district, put it in your own pocket as a family, and spend that on your own children. And you can do that through home learning, specifically with Abeka.com. It is a private Christian homeschooling organization. It hits all the parameters. And I've played the audio here. Donald Trump claims that he's going to be an advocate for home learning, and he wants all states to be tax exempt when it comes to, again, the voucher system of American public schooling, so to speak. He wants parents to be able to have all of that money back in their pockets to spend it on any form of education that they want their children to have. It'll bankrupt the entire American education system, and that's the way it has to be. So instead of people advocating for that and thinking further down the road, they're still trying to, again, rearrange deck furniture on the Titanic as much as they can and keep everything afloat. You can't. You just can't. And as you've also heard me say, the whole property tax issue. Well, everybody's property taxes will diminish if there's no public schooling system around. That's not true. People have to change their mindset. You'll have more money when there isn't an American public school system in your town or city. You'll have more cash. You'll pay less taxes. I don't understand what's so hard about this. But again, people would do well to think ahead on this issue and get it as far ahead of it as humanly possible, and then you'll end up profiting down the line once these particular issues become actual law. And you'll be tax exempt, and you can, again, do whatever you want with that money. But until then, again, trying to rearrange deck furniture on the Titanic is a huge mistake, and I have one specific example that I'll get to a little bit later regarding education and a failed educator, certainly in the town where I live. But I'll get to that a little bit later again. Let me get to this now. Again, back on geopolitics here. Katie Hobbs, as I've said before, along with numerous other governors and even lawyers and AGs in states, are stepping in it. They're all saying, well, we're going to fight Donald Trump on all of this illegal immigration and deporting everybody and this, that, and the other. And, we're already doing a good job on that issue and we don't need his help. And, we will obstruct and get in the way if we have to. Great. I want you to obstruct. I want these people to get in the way. I want them to be arrested for obstruction. I want their entire staffs to be removed for obstruction. Let me play some Katie Hobbs audio here first, and then I have some Tom Homan, the new border czar. I have some audio from him from Fox and Friends I want to play also. So first of all, here's Katie Hobbs in the flesh, coming out of the demon's mouth herself. Give her a listen in 3, 2, 1.
When hearing about the Trump administration's plans for border security, the emphasis really is on this mass deportation. What we saw here today is the actual work happening at our ports of entry that are interdicting drugs, keeping those drugs off our streets, and we need more of that to secure the border here.
As you know, Trump has promised that he would carry out mass deportations on day one of his presidency. Your state is estimated to have 250,000 undocumented immigrants. Some Democrats in your state, like Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, say that she wouldn't allow police to be used to carry out this plan. Would you, as governor, allow state police and National Guard to carry out mass deportations?
We will not be participating in misguided efforts that harm our communities, and I've been incredibly clear about that.
So you disagree with mass deportations and the fact that the president-elect says that's what he's going to be working on day one?
Well, I think that those efforts are going to divert needed resources that we need here on these drug interdiction and smuggling and trafficking efforts to keep harm out of our communities. We need those resources here, and the coming here today and seeing this operation firsthand just underscores that working in partnership here is how we can best secure the border.
What would worry you the most, Governor, about mass deportations?
Well, I think the diversion of law enforcement from the work that they do every day to keep our communities safe. People hiding in fear. We saw that under previous state policies here, and it harms communities. It tears families apart, and that's not gonna happen on my watch.
Wanna bet? You wanna bet? It will happen on your watch, and if you get in the way, you should be arrested instantly. And no, it's not going to divert law enforcement inside of your state to other avenues, not to mention the simple fact that she was standing at the border for a photo op to do an interview with ABC News is beyond embarrassing. Illegals are not coming across the border at the points of entry. Hello? They're walking across where there's no wall. And if there is a wall in their way and there's no security around, they're cutting through the wall, or they're climbing through the wall, or they're shoving their babies right through the gaps in the wall, or they're just walking across again, but they're not coming across at the security door from Mexico into Arizona. It doesn't work that way. I'm not saying some aren't, but for the love of God, ample footage of this is the case. Who does she actually think she's fooling? She thinks she's fooling somebody. But I'm telling you, I want to see her ass in handcuffs, period. I want to see her spun around like a top and then have cuffs tossed on her and watch her ass get thrown in the back of a paddy wagon. I think everybody wants to see that. She's a traitor, period. Stole an election from Kari Lake, participated in that steal, accepted it, didn't question it whatsoever. Throw her in jail just for that. Now with her aside, here's Tom Homan. Again, he's warning these people. If you get in our way, we're going to have a problem. Yes, there will be a problem. It's obstruction of justice. Give Tom Homan a listen on Fox and Friends in 3, 2, 1.
This morning, President-elect Trump's incoming border secretary, Tom Homan, is joining us right now. Hey, Tom.
Good morning.
So, brother, let's break down this because, you see all these media experts saying that Abuela is going to be deported. I think you have two priorities, right? First, you got to get the criminal element, which everyone agrees with. And then number two, you go straight for those 8 million people that have been coming across the border under Joe Biden, right?
Yeah, we got three rails of business, Lawrence. First of all, we got to secure the border. We know how to do that. We've done it before. Second of all, we need to run this deportation operations. The president's been clear. Out of the gate, we're going to focus on public safety threats and national security threats first. and fugitives, those who crossed the border illegally, had great due process at great taxpayer expense, were ordered removed by an immigration judge and didn't leave. They're also a priority. And third rail, we got to find over 300,000 children that were released into this country to so-called sponsors that the government can't find. We also got to find them children and try to save them.
So real quick, Tom, do you deputize the local, like state police, like Texas DPS wants to work with ICE? They want to work with the Border Patrol. Do they get deputized to help out with this crisis?
Yeah, we're going to fight with the 287G jail program, 287G task force programs, both law enforcement agencies. I want to help. Since I've been announced, Lawrence, I've gotten thousands of soldiers that just recently left the military. They want to join forces. Police officers that retired want to join forces. But retired Border Patrol agents, retired ICE agents that want to come back, retirements from Border Patrol, that paperwork is pulled back. There's a lot of excitement to do this job for the President of the United States.
Yeah. Tom, I want to get your reaction to this story. Apparently, the roommate of the illegal immigrant accused of murdering Laken Riley testified yesterday that they took the humanitarian flight from New York City to Georgia before they killed Laken Riley. What's your reaction to that?
Look, he should have been arrested by ICE in New York City, but they're a sanctuary city. He should never be in the country. Under President Trump, he wouldn't have been here. He would have been waiting in Mexico under the Remain in Mexico program. But here's what I want. For all those mayors and governors who said they're going to push back on ICE to do this operation, I want you to listen to that tape of that young lady fighting for her life, fighting for her breath. She did not want to die, and she fought hard. Listen to it. Just don't say, okay, another one died. No, I want you to listen to the struggles, because that happens across this country almost every day by an illegal alien. So I want those sanctuary city people out there saying they're going to push back on ICE. Listen to that and tell me. I just said President Trump wants to take public safety threats off the street. That's a priority. As elected mayor, elected governor, are you telling me that you don't want public safety threats out of your communities? That is your number one responsibility, to protect your community. So smarten up and work with us.
Tom, real quickly, what happens to a mayor or a local police department chief that is under Democratic leadership that obstructs ICE in your federal agents that are helping get these deportations? What happens to them?
Well, first of all, if they don't want to help us get the hell out of the way, we're going to do it. If I got to send twice the amount of resources to that city, that's what we're going to do. If they would give us access to the jail, that would mean less agents in the community. For them pushing back and not letting us in the jail, it just means more agents are going to be in the community, so they're hurting themselves. Finally, I'll say this. They need to educate themselves. They need to review this. Title 8, United States Code 1324, III. Read about that and don't cross that line, because it is a felony to harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. Read the statute, don't cross that line.
That's a warning from Tom Homan right there. Read it clear as day.
Remember on the show a while back, and I think I've said it a few times, certainly at least a few, but I was describing a catch basin of individuals who, again, have been kicked out of the military or kicked out of three-letter agencies or kicked out of positions for one reason or another, typically because they're ethical human beings. They didn't want to take the COVID shots. They didn't want to wear the masks. They didn't, again, want to force it on their coworkers. And they said, screw you, go pound sand. And then they were either fired or they left on their own accord. This is what I'm talking about. And Tom Homan just alluded to it. He said he's receiving thousands and thousands of requests from former agents, retired agents, individuals in the military who want to come back and do this. And they shouldn't want to have to volunteer, or even, again, they of course would be paid, but they shouldn't be doing it for Donald Trump. They should be doing it for America. They should be doing it for American citizens. That's what this job needs to be done for. These people have to go. And as he said, yeah, you go through the jails, you clean out the jails of all these illegal aliens. Again, if they've engaged in the most heinous crimes, you don't just let them go and let them cross the border. Execute them. Just execute them. They're here illegally anyway, so execute them. And then, again, if individuals have engaged in crimes that are considered not violent, and you actually want to waste your time categorizing their crimes, then yeah, you can send them back. But we have to have a border first, which is exactly what he said. You have to close all borders. But what this also involves, which you know this as well, is this involves closing and stopping all of these Jewish and pseudo-Christian organizations that are flying these individuals into states. They're flying them in from foreign countries. They're not just coming from inside of the United States and being flown to another state. They're flying in from their foreign countries where they're coming from, or a neighboring foreign country where they're traveling to. And then those Jewish organizations, and of course, Christian organizations, or ones pretending to be, are sending them directly here. Those organizations have to be shut down also. You have to put a kink in every hose here and cut the supply line completely then. And as I stated, and as he just warned, if anybody gets in his way, you're engaging in a felony, at least one. And then again, arrest them too. I would love to see Katie Hobbs try to make it in a foreign country on her own. Put her on a bus or put her on a plane with a bunch of foreigners from Haiti, and then send her back to Haiti and watch how long she lasts. She'll get torn to pieces in the blink of an eye. Now, there are already rumors that individuals across the United States, certainly specifically illegal aliens, are already packing up their shit and getting out. This is a rumor. There are rumors again that in Springfield, Ohio, illegals are packing up their stuff and they're already heading back. I doubt this. I seriously doubt this. I've seen some superficial footage of illegal aliens packing up their bags and they're all standing in line in an airport, allegedly on their way out. I don't have any proof of this. Me personally, I think these people are going to dig in like ticks. They're going to lean on local government, local city councils, mayors, etc., and they're going to plead for help. But when the authorities show up, the real authorities, and they start rounding up these people, which they'd better do, again, if those local authorities get in the way, or those local city council individuals and mayors get in the way, lock them up too. I'm telling you. Some of these individuals, though, are going to dig in like ticks, and they're going to arm themselves if they aren't already armed. And there will be blood. There will be shooting, guaranteed. And we will see this. This is going to be one of those things that we will see. In fact, this will be one of those things that we will see, and it will be as certain in my mind as me, again, a long time ago stating that you're going to see individuals dropping over on live television from these COVID shots. It will be that certain. It's just a matter of time. We just have to wait a few months here. But this will be something that we will ultimately end up seeing. So guarantee that I will put those news stories and all that footage, of course, in the war videos, and I'll toss it up on my social media accounts as well. But yeah, we will see this, and this is going to be something that happens. Again, the Ring doorbell cameras, the security footage, you name it. This is going to get interesting. It's going to get real hairy coming up here. Okay. I also have this. This is something that's been discussed here recently also, which has to do with the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998. And this is something, of course, that Donald Trump can immediately enact if the Senate decides to not confirm any of his picks for cabinet positions. So let me read through this very quickly here. This one explanation states the following. It says, quote, the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998, Vacancies Act, establishes requirements for temporarily filling vacant positions in executive branch agencies that require presidential appointment and Senate confirmation. This act identifies who may temporarily serve, for how long, and what happens when no one is serving under the act and the position is vacant. GAO issues letters to the President and Congress reporting violations of the Act's time limitations and issues decisions on agency compliance with the Act when requested by Congress. Now here's part of the Wikipedia explanation, if that can be believed. It says, again, regarding the provisions here, it says the law revises provisions relating to the filling of federal vacancies to authorize the President, if an appointed officer of an executive agency defined to include the executive office of the President and exclude the GAO, dies, resigns, or is otherwise unable to perform office functions, to direct a person who serves in an office for which appointment is required to perform such functions temporarily in an acting capacity, subject to specified time limitations. It retains the requirement that the first assistant of such officer shall perform such functions temporarily in an acting capacity as well, and then it says subject to specified time limitations and the limitations described below. So here are the alleged time limits, or the term of office, as it says here. When a vacancy occurs, the position can be filled by an acting officer for 210 days from the date of the vacancy, In addition to the time when a nomination is pending before the Senate, if a first or second nomination is rejected by the Senate or withdrawn, it activates additional 210-day periods from the date of the rejection, but this does not apply to a third or later nominations. However, an incoming president is given 300 days in which to nominate a permanent replacement instead of the regular 210 days. If an office remains vacant for 210 days after the rejection, withdrawn, or return of a second presidential appointment nomination, it remains vacant until a person is appointed by the president. But, and with the advice and consent of the Senate, it then says, in such instance, only the head of the executive agency may perform office functions until such appointment is made in the case of an office other than the office of head of an executive agency. It then says some agencies are partially exempt from these provisions through other laws that override the Vacancies Reform Act. For example, the Homeland Security Act of 2002, as amended by the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2017, mandates that the Undersecretary of Homeland Security for Management is third in the line of succession for Secretary of Homeland Security as an explicit exception to the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, and establishes an alternate process by which the Secretary can directly establish a line of succession outside the provisions of the FVRA. It then says this: similarly, the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004 mandates that the Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence is first in line to the Director of National Intelligence role. The law applies vacancy provisions of the Federal Judicial Code with respect to the Office of the Attorney General. Also, the Secretary of Labor is subject to a different law that does not have a time limit on the term for an acting secretary. Point being, they can apply this to all of the cabinet positions for 210 days. If the Senate doesn't confirm these individuals quickly, then they can have them serve for another 210 days. You're talking about, again, well over a year here, year and a half, give or take, year and a third. That's enough to do enough damage to the federal government to root out enough of the swamp as humanly possible that these individuals are going to want to approve these people. Because the more they dig and the deeper this goes, the worse this will end up for all of the politicians approving or not approving these cabinet positions. This is going to blow up in their face. You talk about Zootsfing, this is it. They're in it. If these senators don't approve his cabinet positions, they're burned. And if they do approve his cabinet positions, they're burned. It's a beautiful thing. Not to mention with the FBI and the Department of Education, you would just need an acting individual in there. You wouldn't need anybody to actually be approved because, again, the idea is to get rid of those three-letter agencies. And then, of course, there's this. Donald Trump, given the fact that he's still the commander-in-chief and has been since 2020, actually since 2017, technically, we are still at war, legally speaking, and as far as paperwork and executive orders and re-upping laws is concerned, which means he can pull the trigger on any cabinet position that he wants, whenever he wants. Again, we're still in wartime, quote unquote, which means he has the ability to just move these individuals forward, at least that's my understanding, without the approval of the Senate. And there's a lot of discussion about that, which I want to get into this, a brief, again, definition of this just kind of quickly here. There was a post on greatawakening.win that kind of broke this down, and it said the following, quote, apparently, a recess has to be at least 10 days long for Trump to be able to trigger recess appointments, because that's been the threat, that he'll make all of these cabinet positions during an actual recess and call them recess appointments. They said, I'm wondering if this is what the 10 days of darkness might refer to, again referring to Q posts. It says a recess is technically a shutdown. But I'm also wondering about another calm before the storm, which was Q Drop 370. It says 10 days after December 7th is the 17th, which is the day the state electors are supposed to cast their votes. And then it says this, December 17th, 2024, electors vote in their states. The electors meet in their respective states and vote for president and vice president on separate ballots. The electors record their votes on 6 certificates of vote, which are paired with the 6 remaining certificates of ascertainment. It says the electors sign, seal up, and certify 6 sets of electoral votes. A set of electoral votes consists of 1 certificate of ascertainment and 1 certificate of vote. Also, the votes arrive on Christmas Day, which is Q Post 456, which is also on the Calm Before the Storm board. Should we be looking at those drops more specifically for the pre-inauguration events, they asked, unquote. Again, I've heard Mitch McConnell, even though he's not in charge anymore and doesn't do anything, say that there isn't going to be a recess that's going to be called. Well, that's not really up to him. It really is up to Donald Trump, frankly, and it's certainly up to the individuals that hold these blackmailers at gunpoint, and certainly the blackmailed at gunpoint. But again, this is all very interesting to me. This is going to be really fun to watch one way or another. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy watching this, but again, there's a lot of lawfare and a lot of Washington, D.C. and legal games being played right now, but either way, it's all going to be interesting, and I'm certain it's going to work out one way or another. Again, just look at the panic with these particular picks. You still have Trey Gowdy on Fox News yelling about Matt Gaetz. He won't let it go. He won't let it go. He's being lectured on Fox News from other guests about why Matt Gaetz is a good pick, and then those guests hit the road like Molly Hemingway, which is unfortunate because she's right. Matt Gaetz is a good pick, but then again, Trey Gowdy comes back and says it's the worst pick ever. He's corrupt. He's terrible. Trey Gowdy's got something to hide. That's the only reason he's screaming, because his blackmailers have him by the throat, and they're saying, you better do what we ask you to do. We want you to go on Fox, bash Matt Gaetz, keep this up. And yeah, it's interesting and highly suspicious, but I love all of it. It's fascinating stuff. One final ongoing story here, certainly regarding the Hurricane Helene victims in western North Carolina. CPS continues to take children from family members just because the family member's home is gone. This continues to be a thing. So the family members are even still together, but just because, again, some of the family members may be dead or their home is gone and they're living in tents, because let's face it, FEMA's not providing any tents for them. FEMA's not providing any trailers for them. There are numerous trailers that do exist that FEMA has put up, but it's just FEMA people staying there or no one is staying there. So numerous questions regarding, again, what they continue to do there, but either way, government is showing up and taking children from these families, from their actual biological parents even, and then giving them to foster homes. Again, they're trafficking children. This is a thing. Give this quick little piece of audio a listen from individuals on the ground there in Asheville, North Carolina in 3, 2, 1.
She says, I was just with a woman that they took her 3 children, and one of them's autistic. I said, where are they going to put them? Said they're going to separate them, put them in foster homes. Yeah. I said, how do you get them back? And there's no answer to that.
Yeah.
But then when they closed down the food pantry for us, so she couldn't get food to people, it's like, what are you doing? You know, and it was,
yeah,
what
people
she
are
said,
saying that that's the media saying that that's not true, that they're not shutting down food.
They didn't shut it down. They took it over.
Taking them over. They're saying they're not doing that. Oh, the government's not doing.
Well, this is a lady that I personally know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is on the media, on national media, they're saying that is untrue. That they're not doing that.
They're also saying there's only 200 people dead.
Yeah,
they haven't found.
I think
most of them.
The last report I saw was like 230. That was probably 5 weeks ago. They stopped reporting deaths.
Yep.
And I know for a fact more than that have been found since I've been here.
They're still finding them along the river.
Oh yeah.
Again, they're taking over the choke points, and then they're, again, stopping food delivery to them. And then, of course, CPS is showing up and saying, well, do your kids have food? And they're going, well, no, we had food coming in. We have some things to eat. We're doing fine. Piss off. But then they're saying, well, this doesn't meet our parameters, so we're going to have to take your kids to foster care, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, they don't tell the parents where they're taking them. I bet there's way more going on there than what anybody's describing. Certainly the media is not getting involved. They have other things they're paying attention to now. North Carolina is not even in their radar. They could care less. I wouldn't be shocked if FEMA people are getting shot by citizens and by family members and getting killed there. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Again, put yourself in their shoes for just a minute. The individuals who are there, the family members who are there, who are trying to protect their children from CPS taking them away. Are you going to stand there and let government take your children when government caused this entire fiasco in the first place? Or are you going to put some of these people down? I think you're going to put them down because it's you standing between government and your children. I bet there's way more going on there than what we're being told. 100%. I bet it's far bloodier than what people can possibly imagine. Again, I can't imagine any ethical sheriff, emphasis of course on the word ethical, I can't imagine any ethical sheriff allowing this to take place. Sheriff's deputies have to stand in between government and the long arm of government, certainly CPS, and of course parents and their own children themselves. They have to. If they don't, again, you're talking about a civil war and an interagency civil war right there all of the time. So I'm not even going to pretend to understand all the ins and outs of what's going on there. I just know that I've seen enough evidence to know it's 100% dirty. 100% dirty. So again, pray for these people. If anybody has any more information regarding that, you want to bring it to my attention, even if anybody listens to the show who's from the general area and you want to come on and give us more information, I'm all for it. So feel free and reach out again, AmericanEducationFM@protonmail.com. I'd love to have you on, and you can describe anything that you'd like regarding what's going on there. Okay, education stuff. I've got one story, local issue, kind of a big deal. So let me backtrack very quickly and just kind of revisit this from the last episode. Last week, actually it wasn't last week, my apologies. It was the first week of November. There was a middle school teacher, a female middle school teacher, allegedly by the name of Miss Drew Edwards. This is an ELA 7th grade, young, in her early 20s if I'm not mistaken, middle school teacher at Talawanda Middle School in Oxford, Ohio. Allegedly, this individual has a reputation of grooming male students, allowing male students to have her phone number, which is suspicious enough. There have been alleged stories of this particular female teacher having cologne in her room and allowing male students to spray cologne on themselves in an effort to get the smell of illegal drugs, specifically marijuana, off of their body, as if that would even work, which, as we know, it doesn't. And then, of course, this individual was implicated in providing a fanny pack to a student who was in possession of at least 1/4 of an ounce of drugs to cover up the stench of said drugs. Keep in mind, again, this is the same school district where Danielle Mann continues to be employed after her entire meltdown, both pre- and post-election day, and how viral all of that went. And now there's this. So first, here's what I want to do. I want to read through the police report, which has been made public. And this, again, is specifically having to do with a black student in possession of a black fanny pack. And again, this was caught by a resource officer inside of the middle school. And they were in possession, of course, of about 1 ounce, so it says here, of marijuana, and that's how much was seized. It says a plastic baggie containing marijuana. And then it, of course, says, let's see here, black fanny pack was confiscated. And, of course, dope was confiscated. Okay, statement of facts, Oxford Police Department. It says the following. Officer Pete Durkin, who is the resource officer there, it says this, quote, on 11/6/2024, while assigned as a school resource officer for the Talawanda Middle School, I was working with a student, blank, 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 was refusing to go to class and was wandering the hallways and bathrooms with another student, blank. While I was trying to encourage blank to go to class, he kept asking if he could have his phone to call his mother to pick him up from school. Just after the 5th period bell sounded, Blank and I walked to a classroom in the 7th grade hallway. Miss Edwards and blank was informed by the teacher in the room that blank's belongings were given to blank. It says, I met with blank in a classroom across the hallway and asked blank for blank's belongings. Blank stood up and walked out of the room and met with blank in the hallway, and I observed them exchange a black-colored fanny pack, and at that moment I detected a very strong odor of marijuana. I informed blank to return to class and followed blank to the front office where I alerted our principal, Dr. Pam Thurer, I don't know how you say her name. Apparently she's very old and doesn't care. That's the rumor there, that she's just filling the position temporarily and she hides out in her office all day. So, effectiveness, ladies and gentlemen. They were alerted about the situation, it says. And then it goes on, it says, quote, the black fanny pack, quote unquote, was searched and a 5x5-inch clear plastic bag containing approximately a 1/4 ounce of a dried-out green leafy plant substance known to be marijuana, a cell phone, and a THC vape, all contained in the black fanny pack, quote-unquote. Last paragraph, it says, blank stated to the principal that the reason he had so much marijuana in their possession was to sell it. It says, blank did not make any statements to me, but he did speak with a guidance counselor. I was informed by Samantha Kuntz that blank was aware of what was in the black fanny pack, and the pack was given to him by a teacher, Miss Edwards, because the odor was so strong. The situation was being looked into by the school district. Both students were issued juvenile citations for possession of a controlled substance, ORC 29251111 C3, and were released to their parents, unquote. So according to the counselor and according to the student, the young female teacher, a Miss Drew Edwards, provided the fanny pack to the student to cover up the smell of the marijuana that the student was in possession of. Therefore, the teacher apparently knew that the student was in possession of marijuana. Now again, as I brought up in the last episode, this is a part of the dysgenics program. You have a clearly damaged, allegedly, female teacher engaging in grooming practices with a minority student with a history allegedly of handing out her own phone number, personal phone number, to students and then covering up their drug possession. This was made public to the school district, the superintendent, and other individuals all the way back then, on the 6th of November, and this teacher was never removed from the classroom environment, nor the district. Not until one of the ethical board members, arguably the only ethical board member on the board, Don King, became aware of this and brought it to the attention of the actual school board members themselves, of which we have to assume that they were all knowledgeable of and covering up. Ethics violations, ladies and gentlemen, numerous ethics violations, including that of the superintendent. Because based on the resource officer's complaint and statement of facts here, they would all find out about this. But Dawn King was kept in the dark as a school board member. So then she recorded herself, of course, in this meeting, bringing this up, and they all wanted to sweep it under the rug and not discuss it. Then it was thrown out on Facebook, and it was thrown out on social media. I put it out on my social media as well. And now finally, on Monday evening, or at least as of Monday, Talawanda put out this statement regarding this particular teacher, although not naming the teacher by name. This statement is also embarrassing for the district because they aren't accepting any responsibility for their inaction from 2 weeks ago. It says TMS teacher placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Quote, Talawanda School District has placed a Talawanda Middle School teacher on leave pending an investigation that involves students and or student discipline. The district has become aware that information surrounding this incident and students has been discussed on social media and among community members. The district is aware that some of the information reported on social media is inaccurate. What's inaccurate exactly? You could state what's inaccurate. It says this is another reminder that student information is confidential and student discipline is also confidential. There are few exceptions to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, FERPA. Thank you to the many parents, students, staff, and community members who understand the delicate nature of managing student confidentiality and allowing the district time to conduct the investigation without hindering the process. Thank you, unquote. The only people who hindered the investigative process or this entire process in general was the school district themselves. Immediately upon such a report, immediately, I wrote about this in my first and second book at least, immediately upon receipt of a report like that from a resource officer, you immediately remove the school teacher from the environment. Immediately, same day. If it's true, then they're gone permanently. If it's not true, and the student was making it up or no one else can verify it in XYZ, then you put the teacher back in the environment. That's assuming that other things aren't found out about said teacher, quote unquote, during that entire investigative period. But there was no investigation of the school teacher. Do you see what's happening here? This is a fag environment. This is what happens when faggotry takes over. It invites grooming. It invites illegality. It invites covering this up from the very people who are trying to cover up for their own illegality. This is called a pattern. I don't think these people understand that the state of Ohio can very quickly get involved and wipe them all out. That the state of Ohio can show up, wipe out the board, wipe out the superintendent, the treasurer, the entire district office, and start from scratch. The more public attention that gets brought to them as a result of them not doing their jobs, they are stepping in it more than they can possibly know. Again, you talk about Zootsfang, they're beyond that. They're in checkmate. It's game over. These people are finished. There's nothing that they can do to correct this. Nothing. This next board meeting is going to be nuts, where allegedly liberal organizations are even going to show up and fill up all of the speaking positions so that no one who is ethical actually has the time to say anything. This district has more sunshine shining on it than any other school district right now in the state of Ohio, and it's all for all the wrong reasons because of the people running the show. They all violated their contracts and their codes of conduct and their ethics and the rules of the Ethics Commission in one fell swoop. A teacher was suspected of knowing that a student had drugs and did nothing about it and sought to cover it up. Allegedly. Oops. That's a huge problem. This has now made WLWT Channel 5 in Cincinnati. Quote, Talawanda middle school teacher placed on administrative leave amid investigation. They go through it. They say, well, the name of the teacher wasn't made mention. It's allegedly a Miss Drew Edwards, ELA teacher, 7th grade, allegedly. And again, in the district's own statement to the public, they don't take any responsibility for not doing their job for something that happened on the 6th of November. They basically say, well, there's some inaccuracies among the public and the public got involved, and don't worry, we're involved now, even though the public got involved. The public got involved because you didn't do your job. That's all that means. It's because you're all gay, and you're doing gay things that gays do. That's the issue here. This is a serious moral dilemma you're in. But you are a moral dilemma. I mean, this school district is a walking, breathing moral dilemma. And it can't get more obvious. The people online talking about this school district, where they actually live in this general area, are saying hilarious things. One parent said something like, I just moved here. And you just now have 2 teachers who have just been placed on administrative leave and are under investigation for unethical behavior in less than 2 weeks. What the hell is going on here? I'll tell you what's going on. It's decades of corruption. It's faggotry. That's what's happening here. It's happening in school districts all across the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said earlier, when the Federal Department of Education shuts its doors permanently and is destroyed and brought to the ground, this kind of behavior is going to double down. These people are going to dig in like ticks, just like illegal aliens. And they will do whatever they have to do to cover their tracks and keep their positions and make it look like they're doing everything that they need to do to be ethical and moral and blah, blah, blah. They are furthest from. In fact, last Friday, at the same middle school, there was a quote-unquote soft lockdown. Take a guess as to why. A student there was overdosing on drugs and allegedly was overdosing inside the school building in at least one bathroom. So they put a soft lockdown on the entire building, kept everybody in their classrooms while this kid's flipping out on God knows what. And then allegedly, the story came out that, well, the student was on the bus when they were flipping out. It didn't happen inside of the building, so it's not administration's fault because administration isn't responsible for what happens on the bus. Horseshit. If it happened inside of the building, that's on everybody in the building, including district officials and district administration. And that happened the day after Don King brought this to their attention about drugs being shared and a teacher allegedly covering it up. And Don's concern was a valid one. What if the dope is laced with something, and then you have an overdose, or you have a death? Then what? These people can't tie their own shoes. They can't. They're pathological liars. They lie about everything. But ladies and gentlemen, this isn't unique to just this area, or this school district where I happen to live. This happens all across the nation, in every district, all of the time. Everybody's just interested in covering their own asses. That's it. Everything's great. Everything's fine. Don't look here. We do everything correct. Blah, blah, blah. If you have to have a public relations communications director, you're doing something wrong. I don't have a communications director. I am the communications director. Again, any of these organizations that have those directors, they're covering for something. That's it. They could make logical statements instead of blaming parents. Well, this story wasn't supposed to get out, but those pesky parents. Again, it's like the end of an episode of Scooby-Doo. We'd have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you pesky parents and those pesky students and pesky adults who are moral and ethical. And they rip the mask off and it's the same damn queers every single time. I'm telling you, these people aren't learning. They've never seen Scooby-Doo before. They're stupid. I grew up watching that shit. Loved it. Let's rip the mask off and see who it is. Mr. Jenkins! Which, by the way, if you're curious, the best Scooby-Doo episodes back in the day, certainly in the whatever that was, the 80s, were the ones where Batman and Robin were on. I mean, come on. When Batman and Robin showed up and helped the whole gang in the Mystery Machine drive around town and, find the criminals, those were hands down the best episodes. Either way, with all of this said, there was this post also, again, from apparently Facebook. It says the following. It says, quote, I need everyone to check their middle schooler's phone and see if this number is in there. They provide a phone number. A 1-937-336-1910. If so, it is, then we have an even bigger issue. This is the number of the teacher that likes to give it out to her students, especially her male students. Someone replied and said, I feel like I'm missing something. There seems to be something new every day. Is this the 7th grade teacher that gave the fanny pack to the student, or a different one? Oh, it's the same one, I'm afraid. It's the same one. Now get a load of this, and I want to read this on the record so that people have a firm grasp of this, and we're going to play a little game here. There are 9 parameters for professional conduct for educators. What do they call these specifically? The principles of, let's see here. The 9 principles, yes. Ohio is nationally known, it says, as a state that produces high-quality educators and recognizes that its 250,000 practicing educators hold the fundamental beliefs defined in the following 9 principles. Well, let's play a game. Let's try to figure out which one of these 9 principles, or how many, I should say, of these 9 principles this alleged educator has allegedly broken. Number 1, it says, again, this is in the, if you were curious, the Licensure Code for Professional Conduct for Ohio Educators. Every state has one of these documents. Number 1, educators behave in a professional manner, realizing that one's actions reflect directly on the status and substance of their profession. They have violated that. Number 2, allegedly. Number 2, educators maintain a professional relationship with all students at all times, both in and out of the classroom. No. Violated. Number 3, educators accurately report information required by the local board of education or governing board, state education agency, federal agency, or state or federal law. No. If they knew that a student was in possession of drugs and they didn't say anything, they're in violation of principle number 3 also. We're 3 for 3 so far. This isn't looking good. Number 4, educators adhere to federal, state, and local laws and statuses regarding criminal activity. Oopsie. Violation of rule number 4 also. We're 4 for 4. Educators, this is number 5 now. Educators comply with state and federal laws related to maintaining confidential information. Well, that depends. Does this educator have the phone numbers of these students? Does the educator communicate with these students over a cell phone or other means of technological communication? I'm going to leave that one up in the air. Number 5 is questionable. Number 6, educators serve as positive role models, it says, and do not use, possess, or unlawfully distribute illegal or unauthorized drugs. I think it's safe to say that this individual violated number 6. So they have violated 5 out of the 6 principles thus far. Number 7, educators ensure school property, public funds, or fees paid by students or the community are used in the best interest of students and not for personal gain. I don't think they violated that, not to my knowledge, so they're free on number 7. Number 8, educators fulfill all the terms and obligations in their employment contracts. Whoops-a-daisy, they violated number 8. So by my count, 1, 2, 3, 4, they violated 6, that's number 5, and they violated 8, that's 7. That's 7 of the 9 parameters that they have allegedly violated thus far, in one fell swoop. How about the last one, number 9? Educators use technology in a responsible manner and safeguard the electronic devices and data entrusted to them. Well, we'll leave that one up in the air also. If they were using social media to inappropriately communicate with students, or they were saying suggestive things over their own cell phone or text message or what have you, then they're guilty. So at face value, just to review, they have violated 6, by my count anyway, and by my professional analysis, 6 of the 9 parameters of the principles of an effective educator holding an Ohio State license. You fire these people. It's that simple. This is not some suspension or reprogramming professional development seminar that they attend or whatever. This is a person who has no business being around minor boys. End of story. See what happens when you sweep issues under the rug? They get worse. You can yell this in these queers' faces until you're blue in the face, and it will go in one of their gay ears and out the other. I'm telling you, these people are criminally minded. They do not care about the law. I just want everybody to know that the safety and security of our schools is our number one concern. They put that record on play, they hit the repeat button, and it just goes round and round and round and says the same old thing over and over and over again. Words don't mean anything. Your actions mean everything. These people have no conscience whatsoever. None. They think everybody's retarded except for them. Oh, joke's on you. So here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to file a formal complaint against this individual's license. They don't have to give me her name. There isn't a news outlet that needs to give me her name. I know her name. I know what she teaches. Every single citizen should file a complaint against her license. This is easy to do. I've been through the process before. I've laid out the hyperlinks on my Substack channel. Again, her name is in a police report that is public information. It's on my Gab and X account. This is fun stuff. We have to get rid of these people. And then we file formal complaints against the licensed individuals, Superintendent Edward Thoreau, against his license too for covering this up. Oopsie. How many parameters or principles of an effective educator did he break in attempting to cover any of this up and not placing that teacher on paid administrative leave or just unpaid administrative leave from 2 weeks ago? Whoopsie-daisy. Somebody's about to be out of a job. I bet waiting tables at those gay bars is looking real good right about now. I told you, brick by brick. You keep stepping in it. You're giving us this gold. I mean, you're just giving it to us for free. We don't even have to pay for this kind of information. It's amazing. One little footnote before I close up shop here on this education issue and the education topics for this episode. Mr. T was also in some of those Scooby-Doo episodes. Those were also highly entertaining. Love Mr. T in those episodes. It was great. I pity the fool who the Mystery Machine Gang and the Scooby-Doo Gang will catch. I pity those fools. It was awesome. Okay, I digress. Jab-related stuff. Talk about a shift here from some comedic issues a little bit to something far more serious. I have a piece of audio here from Dr. Mike Eden that I want to play. He's 100% right, very brief, knocks it out of the park when it comes to the shots. Give this a listen. Again, there's no transition here. Just give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
So now I'm going to turn to something that probably of all the contributors only I can tell you, and that's that the design of these molecular structures in the vaccines, injections, has no other purpose but to injure and kill. It's a huge claim. I've worked over 30 years with colleagues in what's called rational drug design. Every synthetic medicine, that is something not purified from nature, it consists of a series of atoms and molecules and formulations. Every single component in that vial, as it turns out, has to be chosen by a person. They're not there randomly. They're not there as a natural product. Someone decided to put them in there. And you put them in there because you have particular objectives, for the drug to be absorbed quickly or slowly, for it to last a long time or not, for it to go everywhere versus a certain area of the body, and so on. When I looked at these, I declare them toxic by design. They are intentionally harmful. And I think that fits perfectly with the lie you've been told about a pandemic. There isn't one. The purpose of the pandemic, I think, was to damage the economy, to get us used to doing what we're told under a mock emergency, and to roll up our sleeves to receive these dangerous materials. And I believe in short, if you do nothing and don't speak up and do what you're told, you will lose your freedom and then your life. I think some self-appointed group of very rich people have decided they don't like 8 billion people being on the planet and want it to be a much smaller number. I don't have a copy of the script, but I can deduce what they're doing. So, given the warning I've provided to you, I suggest that you get weaving and start talking to anyone and everyone, and do so relentlessly, because this is not going away. And if we do not protest, if we do not refuse and fight back, we will lose freedom first and then our lives.
Again, Mike Eden's been in this fight pretty much since the very start, certainly since 2021. That's really when he started to speak out. Former chief research officer at Pfizer and the head of their respiratory illness portion of Pfizer, anyway. I want to get into this very, very quickly, too. Dr. Anna Mihalcha has a Substack out there, and I put the title of it in the last war video on Monday night. But I want to read it here briefly, and it's rather self-explanatory. But it was from November 12th, and it's titled Breaking Nano Microbot Self-Assembly of Rubbery Clot Filmed in C19 Unvaxxed. Same as vaxxed and deceased clots. It says clot develops despite being on blood thinners in patient with strokes and heart attack. So there are a number of things here, again, just with the title. Number one, the unjabbed are being shed on as a result of being around the jabbed. And they're experiencing this blood clotting also. That's the first thing, that they are witnessing this clotting taking place in the unjabbed. So that's a big deal. Number two, blood thinners don't work when it comes to the jabbed. Again, blood thinners only make the red blood cells slippery. It doesn't take the metal out of the body. It doesn't keep the metal from self-assembling and bringing any blood with it to continue to form these nanotech clots which exist. Again, Sabrina Wallace will sometimes go off on Dr. Anna Maria Mihalcha regarding all of this and say that she's not taking it a step further, which again is why is this nanotech inside of the bloodstream self-assembling? It's self-assembling because of the wireless body area network. It's self-assembling because of the environment and the molecular communication that is taking place from outside of the body to the inside of the body and then back and forth. So certainly a lot of information, again, that a lot of people can look into, but we have to connect the appropriate dots here. And just because we bump up against a particular subject where we sort of quickly dismiss it and say, well, I don't think I can understand that, that usually means that's the subject that someone should look into and start to read about. That's, again, why I do what I do on Substack and try to bring some of this information again to people in written form so that they can see that this actually exists, that this isn't made up. There was also this particular article, which I find beyond hilarious and incredibly deceptive. This was accepted, this peer-reviewed article, peer-reviewed, whatever the hell that's worth, which is, of course, nothing. It was published on August 16th of this year, and get a load of this title. You talk about fraudulent. In fact, I'm going to read the abstract because it is fraudulent. It's titled, The Natural Evolution of RNA Viruses Provides Important Clues About the Origin of SARS-CoV-2 Variants. Every word in that is a lie. Every single word. Here's the abstract. It says, despite the recent pandemic, there wasn't one, the origin of this causative agent, SARS-CoV-2, remains controversial. This study identifies several prototype SARS-CoV-2 variants or protovariants that are descendants of the Wuhan variant. Also a lie, of course, unless individuals are receiving more shots, in which case, yeah, it's probably different poison and certainly amplified poison. It goes on, it says, a thorough evaluation of the evolutionary histories of the genomes of these protovariants reveals that most mutations in protovariants were biased toward mutations that change the amino acid sequence. While these non-synonymous substitutions were common in SARS-CoV-2 protovariants, nucleotide changes that do not result in an amino acid change termed synonymous substitutions, or S mutations, dominate the mutations found in other RNA viruses. The N mutation bias in the SARS-CoV-2 protovariants was found in the spike gene, blah, 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 as well as several other genes. The analysis of the ratio of N to S mutations in general RNA viruses reveals that the probability that an RNA virus spontaneously evolves a protovariant is between 1.5 times 10 minus the ninth power and blah, 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 under natural conditions. These results suggest that SARS-CoV-2 variants did not emerge via a canonical route, unquote. So what does all of that mean? Translation, it means nothing. It's all gibberish. It's not gibberish because it's hard to understand. It's gibberish because it's quite literally snake oil salesmen trying to sell a story to people. It's fake. The article is fraudulent. There's no SARS-CoV-2, there's no COVID, there's no variants. There's varying degrees of poison and the amplitude in that poison. There are different human beings and then a plethora of symptoms. That's it. Anybody arguing about variants or how something spreads or how it pops up or why it looks different in one person or another, it's all nonsense. All of that's nonsense. Let me give you something that, however, is very real, certainly to an extent, except for the fact that these people think that COVID exists. Now, I read this a long time ago, but it just got approved. I read the preprint of this particular article, but it's again just been published. Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law. The authors of this article included Dr. Makis, Dr. Roger Hodkinson, and even Peter McCullough and others. The first author was a Nicholas Holscher, if I'm saying that correctly. Paul Alexander was in on this also. It was titled, A Systematic Review of Autopsy Findings in Death After COVID-19 Vaccination. Now we're talking about just vaccination. We're not talking about COVID, quote unquote, because there is no COVID. Here's the abstract. I'm going to read this in its entirety. Background. The rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines combined with a high number of adverse event reports have led to concerns over possible mechanisms of injury including systematic lipid nanoparticle, LNP, and mRNA distribution, spike protein-associated tissue damage, thrombogenicity, immune system dysfunction, and carcinogenicity. There we go. I'm saying that right? Heart trouble, basically. Heart damage. It says the aim of this systematic review is to investigate possible causal links between COVID-19 vaccine administration and the death using autopsies and post-mortem analysis. Now again, I've heard people say there is no mRNA in any of these vaccines. Even Dr. Brian Ardis has said so, which, by the way, I'm in possession of his book now. Just showed up in the mail. Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. One little section of this I want to read at the end of this episode from that book. But either way, again, he specifically has openly said there's no mRNA in this. It is straight nanotechnology. It is synthesized snake venom. And then, of course, all of the poisons that I read in a previous episode, which is a long list of heavy metals. Again, not an accident. Metals are conductors of electricity and wireless radiation and wireless signaling. It goes on here, methods. We searched PubMed and Science Direct for all published autopsy and organ-restricted autopsy reports relating to COVID-19 vaccination up until May 18th of 2023. All autopsy and organ-restricted autopsy studies that included COVID-19 vaccination as an antecedent exposure were included. Because the state of knowledge has advanced since the time of the original publication, 3 physicians independently reviewed each case and adjudicated whether or not COVID-19 vaccination was the direct cause or contributed significantly to death. Results. We initially identified 678 studies and, after screening for our inclusion criteria, included 44 pages that contained 325 autopsy cases and 1 organ-restricted autopsy case, including a heart. It says the mean age of death was 70.4 years. The most implicated organ system among cases was the cardiovascular at 49%, followed by the hematological, blood, 17%, respiratory 11%, and multiple organ systems 7%. 3 or more organ systems were affected in 21 cases. The mean time from vaccination to death was 14.3 days. Most deaths occurred within a week from last vaccination administration. Keep that in mind. The next time some dummy decides to go out there and put another needle in your arm, that most deaths occurred within a week from their last shot. It says a total of 240 deaths, or 73.9%, were independently adjudicated as directly due to or significantly contributed to by COVID-19 vaccination, of which the primary cause of death included sudden cardiac death, 35%, pulmonary embolism, a stroke in your lung, 12.5%, myocardial infarction, 12%, VITT, 7.9%, myocarditis, 7.1%, multisystem inflammatory syndrome, or sepsis even, 4.6%, and cerebral hemorrhage, 3.8%. Conclusions. It says, quote, the consistency seen among cases in this review with known COVID-19 vaccine mechanisms of injury and death, coupled with autopsy confirmation by physician adjudication, suggests there is a high likelihood of a causal link between COVID-19 vaccines and death. Further urgent investigation is required for the purpose of clarifying our findings, unquote. I don't know what more proof people need. I just don't know. It can't get any clearer. I will link that article in the document that I have under the Medical Documents tab, the ongoing building document of all of the COVID-related, quote-unquote, and shot-related and mask-related articles. Again, all the white papers associated with it that I have found over the last 4+ years here. And I will include that again at the bottom of that huge list, being the most recent. And you can check it out too if you're interested, or you can just download that entire PDF with all those links for free. And you can move that around to anybody that you would like, or keep it for your own records. Now, Dr. Brian Ardis's book, in conclusion, on Chapter 9, it says the following, and it is titled, An Antiviral Vaccine That Contains No Virus. Correct. Because it can't contain a virus, because viruses don't exist. It just contains a boatload of intentional poison. That's all. It says the mRNA vaccines for COVID contain no SARS-CoV-2 virus. The National Institutes for Health admits it. Here is their complete statement. Quote, mRNA vaccines do not contain the SARS-CoV-2 virus, so you cannot get COVID-19 from an mRNA vaccine. And again, as even Dr. Ardis fully understands, at least I hope he understands, that there is no COVID-19 and that there was only poison, and that there is no so-called mRNA inside of the poison unless the name just got changed. Because think about it. If you say mRNA or messenger RNA and you feed that line to medical doctors, pediatricians, etc., your doctor, along with the one that I used to have, who I never went to, but I went to him one last time for poison ivy, and then he, of course, pushed the shots on me. And I looked at him, of course, facetiously and rhetorically, and I said, go ahead and tell me about what's in the shots. And then he goes into the scripted mRNA story. Well, they have mRNA in them. And it's a messenger that has a cell in it that takes the signal right to the cell, and it tells the cell exactly what to do and what to look for, and hocus pocus and abracadabra. And all of this, again, cartoon fiction bullshit. And he just repeats it without even thinking that everything that he's saying is a lie. So whether there's mRNA, quote unquote, in it or not is irrelevant. All you have to do is switch the name from nanotechnology to mRNA. Which one of those sounds a little less invasive? Which one of those names sounds worse to a patient Well, we're going to inject you with nanotechnology. People are like, wait a minute, what the hell is that? But if they say, don't worry, it's mRNA, this is the latest, greatest thing, people are like, hell yeah, I'll take 3. That's all you have to do in this corrupt business is change the name. But changing the names of things is a part of what program? It's a part of the dysgenics program. I'm telling you, everything here comes back to dysgenics. All of it. This is all a part of it. Thank you for listening as always, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the more of this book from Dr. Artist that I read, I will bring this information to you. You, of course, could purchase the book yourself. It's a nice size paperback. There's approximately, almost 300 pages, give or take. Yeah, just over 300 pages, including references. Yeah, I admire him. He's done really good research on things that, again, people were not doing research on. That should tell you that there's something here. And again, if he's not making his way to major stages anymore, that should tell you something also. So with all that said, thank you for listening as always. Check out the Substack if you're interested. I'll link it in the description below, and I'll catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.